Today I'm sharing the ugliest fragrances I have encountered. This is part 2 in this series. I've done a video previous to this talking about some ugly fragrance bottles. A lot of you guys really enjoyed that one. And today I was like, let's do another one. Let's talk about some more. And keep in mind, this is my opinion. My opinion does not have to be your opinion. My opinion is very personal to me, but I do strongly believe that if you're spending money on something, you should be able to enjoy all aspects of it, especially with some of these fragrances, because some of these fragrances do cost a pretty penny, and I think you should be able to enjoy all aspects of the fragrance, not just the juice inside, and I feel very strongly about that. So this is going to be a fun and lighthearted video. Keep in mind, just because you love a fragrance does not mean I have to love it too, and just because I love a fragrance does not mean you have to love it. This is a fun and lighthearted video. Yes, we're doing a little bit of roasting, but this is all in good fun, and if you don't like that, then don't watch it. But anyway, some of you do like it, so that's why I'm doing this video for you. If this is your first time on this channel, hello, my name is Anya. I absolutely love fragrances and I talk about them here 5 times a week, Monday through Friday. And I also publish videos on TikTok and content on Instagram under the username ANECHKAFRAGRANCES. Recently, I published a podcast. It's called The Fragrance Report. Currently, it's only available on Spotify, but I am actively working on getting it on other podcast platforms as well. And even if you don't actively listen to podcasts, rest assured I do actually publish portions of my podcast on my YouTube channel, usually like around on Thursdays and Fridays. So subscribe if you want to see some of those. So something that I talk about across all my content, no matter what platform it is the idea of conscious consumerism. And I came up with this really term on myself, but I'm sure I'm not the first person to use a term like this. What do I mean by conscious consumerism? I believe that as a consumer, you should be able to be really particular about what you're buying. I believe in really being strategic with what comes into my collection and also strategic about all aspects of my life. I'm not a minimalist by any means, but I like to have things and I like to collect things. But I am very conscious of the fact that if I do not exercise conscious consumerism in my personal life, things will get a little bit out of hand because I'm going to have things that I don't really enjoy having that are cluttering up my life, causing me stress, and, draining my wallet. And I do think that's something that not a lot of people talk about, or not a lot of people talk about as they should, and that's what I make my content about. So how does this video kind of fit into that? Well, I do believe that sometimes it's good to be hypercritical and analyze different aspects of a product. And this is why I personally am not really super interested in some of these fragrances. Some of these fragrances I did have in my collection, and I had some experiences with these fragrances and I wasn't really happy with them, so I got rid of them. So with that being said, let's get into it. The first fragrance I want to talk to you about is actually Bond Number 9. Now, I personally am not a fan of their bottle design and aesthetic, and I will be the first to say it's not meant for me. It's clearly not something that's catering towards my tastes, but this is an example of a bottle design that I literally do not like because I've held the fragrances before and the bottles do appear to be pretty good quality. I appreciate that. I like the materials that they're using. It's a nice weight. That's all. Those are all things I look for, especially when it comes to a niche fragrance. What I don't like is the design, and the design is very signature to the brand. I get that, but I think that it kind of ends up looking a little bit cheap. And these fragrances are not cheap. These fragrances are niche, and they're more of a premium niche. And I think that they just end up looking very cheap. Like, if I was buying this fragrance, I wouldn't necessarily love the way it looked like displayed because it looks a little bit too gauche for my tastes. My tastes run a little bit more classical, and Bond Number 9 is inspired by New York, and it's clear that these bottle designs are meant to kind of encapsulate that theme, and that's the way the brand works. Like, that's what they do. But I have literally just been deterred from trying really most of their fragrances simply because I don't like the way the bottle looks, and I really can't picture myself ever actually making the decision to buy these fragrances because of the way the bottle looks, and that's just my opinion. Another bottle design that I really don't like, and I don't think I'm alone in this, I think a lot of people might feel the same way, is Victor and Rolf's Good Fortune. Now, Good Fortune is a fragrance that came out a few years ago. It's been around for quite a bit. They've had a flanker as well. What I don't like about this is that the bottle itself is glass, or I think it's glass, and then the fragrance cap is clearly plastic. And they're going for like this crystal kind of effect for the cap, but once you try it in person, it's abundantly clear that the cap is literally like this like lightweight, cheap feeling plastic. And there's something about looking at a fragrance and thinking of it in a certain way, and then actually trying the fragrance, experiencing, holding the fragrance, and having the kind of disconnect. Like with this fragrance, like they could have done something like really beautiful. They could have really had like this beautiful kind of like crystal mythicism aspect, but they just went for something like really kind of like trendy crystals and easy plastic. And all in all, this fragrance, the juice inside is not to my taste anyway, but also the fragrance bottle itself, not to my liking at all. This is just not a fragrance that I like because I just think it looks cheap. The next bottle that I don't like is actually all the bottles in the Chanel Chance line. This is a line that I actually do think is quite wonderful. I really like Chance Eau Fresh. And I think that for their eau de parfum, they came out with this like kind of metallic looking cap. But for their eau de toilettes, the original line, they have like this cloudy glass for the cap. And the cap itself, like there's nothing wrong with the feel of it. It feels, you know, decently good. But what I don't love, and I think that I might be alone in this, but like there's something about the way that the cap is so square and the bottle itself is very circular that kind of messes with my brain. Like I look at that and I'm like, I kind of wish they could have either made like a circular cap or just done something differently, because like the bottle is like a circle and the cap is like square. I kind of like, this is me being incredibly nitpicky, and I still will probably get this fragrance in the future anyway, but this is just me talking about design and being super nitpicky about it, so keep that in mind. You know what would be really cool if they had the Chanel logo in metal or glass and they had that attached to like a circular component and then they put that on the bottle. Would that be okay? I don't know if that would be better or worse, but that's an idea. But I also think it would be nice if they kind of like made like a circular component for the cap instead of making it so like blocky and so like geometric, because then the bottle is different and the cap is different. It just looks like it came, it's not something I love, and that's just my opinion. And yeah, so that's just me being super nitpicky. But Sean So Fresh in general, one of my favorite designer fragrances. Something that I don't like, I mean, in theory, I like the way it looks. In practice, it feels like plastic. This would go for the Tom Ford fragrances. The one I have right now, open on my phone, is Lost Cherry. Lost Cherry. This is the one I have. As an example, this is literal plastic, and you can tell the bottle is plastic, or there are some plastic components in it. The cap is plastic, and this costs several $100s. The fact that these components are plastic, I don't understand why that is. I think that they should have gone for like a kind of a glass component, or something that at least feels a little bit more luxurious, considering the Tom Ford fragrances are so expensive anyway. Again, that's not stopping anyone from buying Tom Ford. Clearly, it's one of the more popular designer fragrance brands out there, but that's me being really nitpicky. I think that if they went for something that wasn't just plastic, it would actually be a little bit more enjoyable of an experience to test this fragrance out. But whenever I've tried this fragrance in stores at the counter, I've just I've just felt the plastic, and I'm not a super fan of it. Another celebrity fragrance, actually, I mean, this is the first celebrity fragrance we're talking about in this video, that looks really weird is Caramel Orchid by KKW Fragrance. And I don't know if this is a limited edition or not, but I was looking for fragrances to put in this video, and I saw this, and I was like, what is that? It looks like, I get what she's going for, because she's clearly going for like that minimal aesthetic that's like very on brand for Kim Kardashian. And actually, I really, really like Kim Kardashian. Don't get it twisted. I really like her. Yeah, I like her a lot. This bottle design itself, like, I feel like it fits with her aesthetic, but objectively, it looks like a protruding belly button, and I can't unsee it. It looks like some, like, kind of modern art extravagance. It looks so weird, and I haven't actually tested this fragrance, and I know I'm probably sounding, like, so hypocritical because I have KKW's Pure Honey, or Kim Kardashian's Pure Honey, and I love that fragrance, but also that bottle itself. I mean, like, it's early 2000s, so what can you expect? But, or it's 2000s, so yeah, what can you expect? But that bottle also looks really, really weird. But that's like a whole other category. This one just looks like a belly button gone wrong. It looks so odd. The next design that I kind of want to talk about is House of Sillage. Now, I haven't really talked about this that much, but there has been a lot of controversy around certain brands and their political affiliations, especially on TikTok, where a lot of this stuff seems to happen because TikTok is short form content. It's really easy to watch different things and to be exposed to different things and to come up with an opinion, so that then kind of filters into Instagram. On YouTube, not as much. I don't really like talking about that because at the end of the day, my objective is to talk about fragrance, and I don't like to bring politics into it. So I feel like everyone just recently started hating on House of Sillage anyway, and old videos that I've done on House of Sillage, like, I kid you not, videos that are several years old that I've forgotten about have been coming up in the algorithm, and I've been getting like new comments from people saying how horrible House of Sillage is and like, why am I talking about them? And I'm like, this was like from years ago, and I just was talking about the fragrances. I wasn't talking about anything the owner has done, like, none of that. Um, it's just funny. But the bottle design of some of their fragrances, not all, some of their fragrances has always been a little bit off to me. And their fragrances, like, I mean, they're nice. They're just not my style to the point that I have ever really been like, oh yeah, I really want to buy this. They're pretty, like, safe fragrances, objectively. Like, they're kind of like these, like, floral, fruity musks. And if you're interested in something, like, more, I would say, like, versatile, those are some nice fragrances to try. Like, they're I don't think I've ever smelled anything from them that I've, like, found to be terrible, but at the same time, there's nothing from their line that I've been like, wow, this is amazing. They do put a lot of work into their bottle design. So the glass, it's glass and metal basically. So the bottle itself is French glass, so it has no seams. It's, I think, hand blown or hand done or whatever, and then they have Swarovski crystals on the bottles. Some of their themed fragrances are a little bit weird. Like, for example, this Bugs Bunny one. I know, like, they're going for a certain theme. I get it, but it just, again, I'm not the target audience for this because I don't really love Disney that much, like, not in an unusual way, and I'm not like a super fan of Bugs Bunny, so I'm not the target audience, and this is kind of like meant to be like a tongue-in-cheek thing. But again, this is my opinion, and this is like who I am as a customer. But if I'm paying a certain amount, I don't really want to go for something like fun and playful. I want to go for something elegant and timeless, and this to me is not it. But keep in mind, I am not the target audience for this. So I think that's really important to keep in mind if you are looking at something that a brand is doing. You might not be the target audience for that design, for that decision. So it's important to, keep that in mind because not everything is meant for you. And not everything in this collection or in this brand is meant for me, and I acknowledge that. Oh my gosh, let's talk about some Lattafa fragrances. Ancam looks like a band-aid was pasted on top of a bottle. I don't know if I mentioned this in my previous video that I did when I talked about the ugly fragrance bottles, but it literally looks like a band-aid as is on the bottle, and I literally cannot unsee it. I don't care, like, I cannot unsee that. Let me just scroll down and see what else. In general, I think I mentioned this in my last video, Eclair. I'm not a fan of the plastic. And also Yara, the whole Yara line, not a fan of that either. It's just like a plasticky feeling. Middle Eastern fragrances used to be really affordable. I'm talking $20, $30. They blew up on social media, on TikTok, YouTube. People started really talking about them, and these Middle Eastern brands have now been coming out with new fragrances with increased pricing. So now Middle Eastern fragrances are more expensive. So a lot of the new releases it's kind of annoying because you end up blind buying them because you really aren't able to try them in person, at least here in the US, unless you buy a decant online, which I try to do. But you end up blind buying them, and they're usually like 3.4 ounces. They're usually a pretty hefty size, and some of these bottle designs are a little bit extra, so it's difficult to store. So you kind of take a certain risk because when previously these fragrances were being sold for like 20, 30, $40, now they're being sold for like as much as $80. And yes, I know you can find them cheaper, but I'm talking about the prices that are on the Latafa website or on the Middle Eastern websites. They are like $70 to $80 for some of these new releases, and in my opinion, a lot of these bottle designs do not look as if they should be $70 to $80, and that's why I'm so critical of them. Let's see, what else? So, oh yeah, Musk Salama. I had this fragrance and I literally hated the bottle so much. I just got rid of the entire fragrance because the cap is plastic. The bottle is not, or I don't think it's plastic. It didn't feel like plastic. The cap was like this light crystal. Can you tell that I don't like light crystal kind of plasticky caps? It literally kept falling off all the time. I could barely hold it because it was kind of like a it was like a rectangle, and to hold it to even like talk about was like hard. And using it was like just not a fun experience. So I got rid of that bottle. Like I'm not a fan of that. It's literally like the feeling was not great. Oud al Sahra. This was a bottle that I kind of. It was a how it's called. It had a defect. The wooden kind of plate on the front kept falling off, and it fell off like literally the first time I used it. So that wasn't really the best. So I think I ended up either gifting it to someone else or I just like got rid of it entirely. So that wasn't a fun experience. Ser is one of those bottles I was talking about earlier where the packaging is so like big that's kind of difficult to store. So I don't have this bottle, but I've seen other creators talk about it and it's huge. Like you have the bottle itself, which is 3.4 ounces, and then the little sculptural thing on top that also takes up a lot of space. So it makes it difficult to store. And I honestly have a decant of Ser. That's all I need. I've talked about it in the past. It's a nice fragrance. It's not like super, super unusual. I get why people like it, but a lot of the reason why I don't want it is because that thing is huge. And I think I have some fragrances that smell kind of similar to it. And I just don't need to have that huge thing in my collection. It's just not practical. Okay, so that's it for these fragrances. Those are all the ones I wanted to talk about. Let me know, what did you think of my opinion on these? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let's talk about it in the comments. And once again, thank you so much for watching till the end, and I'll see you next time. Bye.